So as we get started, we also have these artworks here, and we wanted to see as a warm-up if you had any questions, if things stood out to you about these. The session's been live for about 5 minutes, so I actually got one in the chat, and Leah, I think the bottom one in the middle, someone was interested in all the different colors there. Like those aren't just the typical pink color, and so they were just interested in all the different colors.
Great, thanks, Matthew. My name is Leah, and I work at the Smithsonian American Art Museum. In the artwork that you're seeing in the middle, that is a lot of bright colors. That also stands out a lot to me. That is by an artist named Scott Hyde, and the artwork is called Untitled Bouquet. It was actually made in 1971, but the artist Scott was born in 1926 in Minnesota. And he's best known for doing photography, so for taking photos. And this amazing photo is actually lots of different photos layered on top of each other in lots of different colors. So you can kind of see flowers, but they're also kind of abstract. And I really love this one. It really inspires me to make artwork that are lots of bright colors. And I hope it inspires you too, to kind of use lots of colors and layer different things. You can use different materials. Yeah, I hope that answers your question about that artwork.
Thanks for sharing that, Leah. That's really great. And before we kind of keep going, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about our Blossom Buds theme. So the word buds refers to, first and foremost, the flowers of the Cherry Blossom Festival, all those beautiful flowers that we see and all the buds and blooms that are coming out on the tidal basin here in DC. But there also refers to friendship, how you can have buds is sort of a term for friendship between two people. And so the story of the cherry blossoms here in DC, in the top artwork there, you can see the Washington Monument. A lot of the trees that have come here, over 300 of them, were given as a gift from Japan in 1912. They were planted in DC, and that's sort of the origin of the National Cherry Blossom Festival. The other thing that I kind of wanted to relate real quick to our cherry blossoms that we celebrate today, to the artwork, is to the left, you see the picture of people walking and looking at the cherry blossoms together. So in Japanese, there's one word for flower viewing, hanami. So in English, it's not kind of its own concept or idea, but I kind of like that idea that in Japanese, they have a specific word for going to see the flowers. So without further ado, let's do some introductions and kind of get this workshop started. So I talked a little bit about the theme today, but this is part of an ongoing series that we do between the National Museum of Asian Art and the Lunder Conservation Center at the Smithsonian American Art Museum, where we bring conservators and educators together to kind of talk about all of these different artworks and the work that goes on preserving these artworks for future generations. Today we're talking about cherry blossoms, but let's introduce some of our presenters. My name is Matthew Lesnowski, and I'm a volunteer in the conservation department at the National Museum of Asian Art. And I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ellen Chase, who's an objects conservator.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ellen Chase, and as Matthew said, I'm an objects conservator at the National Museum of Asian Art. And we'll talk a little bit more about what a conservator is later. But just very generally, what we do is we work to make sure to preserve the collections. And now I'm going to turn it over to Leah, who is also an objects conservator.
Thanks, Ellen. Yes, like Ellen said, my name is Leah Bright, and I'm also an objects conservator, but I work at the Smithsonian's American Art Museum, also here in Washington, D.C. And last but not least is Laura, who also is at the Smithsonian American Art Museum.
Hello, I'm Laura Hoffman, and I am a volunteer with the Lunder Conservation Center, working with Leah at Smithsonian American Art Museum. We might call it SAM for short, so sometimes we go by both. All right, let's learn a little bit more about conservation.
Okay, so I don't know if any of you, if you've come to any of our programs before, or maybe you've heard the word before, but Does anybody know anything? Do you know what a conservator is or what conservation is? If you do, go ahead and put something in the chat. If not, that's great, because then we have a chance to talk about it. So take a look at this picture and you can see that I'm doing something there, but take a look and tell me some of the things that you notice. What am I doing? Is there anything near me that looks interesting? Anything that you see that you're not sure what it is and are curious? Go ahead and take a really good look and let me know what you see. One of the most important things we do as conservators is to look at things really closely, to examine artwork and take a really close look at it. So you'll be kind of like a conservator starting already, just looking in and seeing what kind of things you notice. So take a minute and go ahead and add something.
So the first thing that someone wrote in was science equipment. And then the second thing is someone said Q-tip.
Yes, so both those you're right. So what a conservator does, what we do is we take care of the collections. So we're kind of like doctors for the artwork, right? So we help work with it when if it's not feeling well, if it's broken, or if there's something wrong, but we also help make sure that it stays healthy, or preventive conservation is what it's called. And so the science is important in terms of understanding how something is made and also the best way to take care of it. And so if you look on the left, you can see that that's a microscope. And so one of the things, remember I was saying we do close looking. So we use those, or we also use these sometimes. It's called an optivisor. And if I do this, I can get a magnification and I can look really closely and understand what's happening. So in this picture, I'm working with a big ceramic vase that has lots of beautiful flowers on it, right? But I have to understand what's wrong. So I look really closely. And what I was doing here is looking at the surface, and I realized that the surface was a little dirty. So sometimes we use Q-tips. Here, I have some here too. Q-tips are one of the ways that we can clean surfaces. It doesn't always work. It really depends on what's wrong, but it's one of our special tools that we often use. And so keep taking a look and tell me if you notice anything else, and I'll just tell you quickly. I don't know, can you guys see what I'm wearing here? This is a lab coat. So kind of not so many doctors wear them anymore, but sometimes you go to the doctor and they'll be wearing a coat like this. And so can you think of reasons why, as a conservator, I might wear a lab coat? And while you're thinking about that, the other thing that we wear a lot are gloves, right? So thinking again, what's the reason why a conservator who's working with very fragile artwork might wear gloves? So go ahead and put those things in the chat. We're really excited to hear what you have to say.
So some of the things that I'm seeing come through the chat right now is someone said protect and clean, that those things kind of keep you clean. So what I'm thinking is that our guests are thinking that those things kind of protect you, but also the artworks.
Yes, that's perfect. And that's exactly what we do, right? So this is to protect me, because sometimes we work with things that are messy and dirty, and I don't want to get myself messy, but also because, like, sometimes especially when it's cold out, I'll wear a fuzzy sweater and I don't want to get fuzzies all over the artwork. And you're right, Matthew, and whoever was in the chat, that, when we wear gloves, that's to protect our hands if we're using chemicals, but it's also to protect the artwork when we handle artwork, because some artwork is really sensitive to the oils that are on our skin. And even if I wash my hands really carefully, sometimes it's not enough. And so that's a way of protecting the artwork too. And I think that gives you a pretty good idea of what we do. And then maybe we'll move on to the next thing so you can learn more about what we're going to do today.
All right. Thank you, Ellen. So if you haven't yet, we're going to be moving into the art making portion. So make sure to grab your materials. I'm going to review them here, and then I'm going to stop sharing so we can look at what we're doing a little more closely. But I'm just going to call out here, you're going to grab some paint. It can be any type of paint. I personally like tempera paint because it is washable. So any kind of colors are good. I'm going to be focusing a lot on having white and red, because white and red make pink, and we're going to be making our own cherry blossom paintings today. So when you have paint, you often need a brush. So make sure you have a brush. Then we're going to you need some sort of palette. Paper plates work good. I also have this great, it's perfect for on theme because it looks like a flower, little palette here. Then we are, of course, are going to need some paper. You can use any paper, but because we're going to be painting, a thicker one is always nice. So this is a piece of cardstock. Now you get to also choose. We're going to be kind of choosing your own adventure for how to make the cherry blossom. So we've got a couple of options here. So I'm going to actually just stop my screen so you can see me a little closer. So here we say a plastic soda bottle. What we mean by that is specifically the ones that have, it looks like the petals on the bottom here. So some have different ones. So make sure it has these ridges you can see from the side here, because what we're going to be doing is stamping on the bottom here. Or you can use bubble wrap. If so, I cut mine into just a smaller square just to make it a little easier to handle, but you can do it any size. And then the last is you saw that Ellen mentioned that cotton swabs are a great conservation tool. They also can be a great painting and creativity tool. So what I did was just put a small bundle of 4 or 5, and then I just wrap them into with an elastic band here. So it becomes a little bundle that we can use for painting here. Okay, so what we're going to do is grab our paper. And this is a little tricky here because I don't want to get it all dripping. So I'm going to show you and pull it up. What I like to start with is to take my brush and to take just a dark color paint here. So we can see I've put some different colors here. You can see I have some black that I might use for my branches, but I also created, you can see from the red and the white, I made some pink here. I also have some yellow, I have some green, I have some blue. So I also made this kind of darker shade here. So you can really use whatever colors you want. Don't feel like you have to follow what I do. All are welcome here. So what I'm going to do is take some of this black and I'm going to start to just put some straight-ish. You don't want 2 straight lines because we're doing tree branches, and trees aren't really, they tend to flow whichever way they like to. So I'm just going to make some, and then I'm going to paint a little bit of some blue in the background here, and I might paint some green below to do some grass. So basically I'm just thinking about what a tree scene might look like. So I'm just going to do some really quickly here. All right, so I can show you some that I've been working on. Let me show you here. You can see right this part. So again, you can just see some roughed out there. And then you just keep going. But then what we need to have is, think about it, we got to have, if we're doing a cherry blossom tree, we need some blossoms. So to do that, again, we have 3 options. We can dip our bottle into the paint like this and use it as a stamp on the paper. That's option 1. Option 2 is to take our cotton swab bundle, dip it into the paint, and then use that as a stamp. Or option number 3, we can take that, let's see right here, the bubble wrap, and dip it in like so. And you can see now I have the pink paint on here, and then we're just going to dab it onto our paper to make some great blossoms. And you can see here, I've just been starting to put more on. And you can see sometimes I put it on with a lot of paint. Sometimes I use a little less paint. So that kind of gives it what we like to call some dimension here. Because if you think about it and you look at some trees outside, sometimes you can see some really close up and they look really bright. And then the other ones can look, they're further in the distance, so they look a little blurrier. So have some fun and play around with it. Now, we encourage you to keep doing it and making your artwork. We would love to see it. What we do is at the end of the program, we turn off the recording and we do a virtual show and tell. So you can actually email us a picture at dwrclunder@si.edu. We're going to put it in the chat. And if so, if you email it to us before the end of the program, we'll include it in our virtual show and tell. Or if you email it to us after the program, we can put it in our learning lab after. All right, so what I'm going to do is reshare our screen, and we're going to look at some artwork together as you continue creating your cherry blossom paintings.
Thanks, Laura. Okay, so this artwork is from the collection where Laura and I work at the Smithsonian's American Art Museum. So take a second here and look at this really interesting artwork. What colors do you see? Any familiar shapes? Anything maybe related to what we're talking about today? This might not look exactly like maybe the colors that we might normally associate or think of when we talk about flowers and cherry blossoms. We might normally think of like this color that I'm wearing today, but just like your artworks that you're making today, they can be, flowers can be all kinds of colors and styles and designs. So take a peek at what you see, and maybe what do you think this artwork could be used for? It could be also related to what we're talking about today. So while you're looking, I'll tell you a little bit about it. So this is a vase, and it's called Blooming Vessel by the artist Chungi Chu. And as you can see, there's actually little buds, little flower buds on the top of this vessel. So those are flowers just before they open up. So it's just kind of that moment before a flower fully blooms. And it's really pretty. And it is actually made out of a metal. It's made out of silver, but it's made out of a different metal that has silver on the outside. So it's just a really thin layer of silver. And I hope you can see how shiny it is. And while silver can be very shiny, I don't know if you have any silver in your house, but it can also, if it's silver is left out in the air, it can start to be less and less shiny. And that's something that we call tarnish. And while sometimes that's okay, in this case, the artist wants this to be really shiny and pretty. So Laura, if you want to go to the next slide. These are a couple of details of a moment that I was polishing this shiny vessel before it goes on display. And it's actually on display right now in our museum, the Renwick Gallery, so you can go and see it. So
Leah,
although we're talking,
there's a question about what you do to polish the artwork.
Oh, good question. So there are lots of different kinds of things that we do to polish silver. We can sometimes just use a soft cloth. That might be enough to rub away the silver. But the thing about polishing is whenever you're removing tarnish from silver, it's also taking away a tiny bit of silver. So we need to be very careful. And you might think, what is this weird brown blob in the middle of the screen? And that's actually the vase itself in a special kind of bag that I made that is called silver cloth. And it's actually a special type of fabric that absorbs all the icky stuff in the air that would tarnish the silver. So instead of just polishing it all the time, we try to make sure that it doesn't get dirty and tarnish in the first place. So that bag protects it from the air, so I don't have to polish it very often. So this was a treatment that I did by myself. I didn't need a lot of friends or other people to help me work on it. But Ellen next is going to show a couple of examples of art doctor projects that required a lot of friends and working together, just like Japan and the United States with the cherry blossoms. So take it away, Ellen.
Thanks. So like Leah said, I'm going to talk about a couple of different things. Sometimes, a lot of the time we work on objects that are smaller and we can do them by ourselves. But sometimes we have really big objects that we need a lot of help with, because sometimes you just can't do it yourself. And it's really important to work with your friends. So this is a hand scroll. It's a painting. And it is over 8 feet long. So if that makes, just to make you think, I am 5.5 feet tall. So it would be like 1.5 me in length, right? So it's really long. And I don't know if you can kind of see along the edge, it has a special mounting hand scrolls are rolled up, and then you kind of look at a little section at a time is the way you would normally look at it. But in order to be able to roll like that, it has a very special layers of fabric and paper and things behind it. And so sometimes we need to work on those. And so if we could go to the next one, please. So here is an example. It's this painting, and even this is only a section of it, right? But so you can see that it takes a lot of people to work on it, because what's happening in this picture is they're taking the mount or the backing off of it. And in order to do that, you have to use moisture, and it's not good for the painting to leave it wet for a long time. So once you get it wet, you've got to go and you've got to do it, right? And it's all got to be done in one day. So it takes everybody, we all have to help to try and get it done in one day to make sure that it doesn't stay wet too long and that the painting stays safe. And you can see all those funny little bits of paper on the right-hand side. That's all stuff that people have been peeling off of the back. So if you have any questions about this, let me know. Otherwise, we can give it a minute. Otherwise, we'll go on to another example. Okay, so this is another piece in our museum that is very big. This is a whole room. So you can see that there is ceramics on the shelves, and each one of those, the bowls and the vases and things like that, those you can work on yourselves. But this is the peacock room, and it was painted by an artist named James McNeill Whistler. And you walk in, and it's a very big room. It's twice the size of my kitchen, right? So you walk in, and the whole room is the art object. So all that paint on the wall, all the shelves, all of that is something that we work on as conservators. And so this past summer, we had a project that lasted for 3 months working on it, cleaning it and fixing areas. But it's so big that to get it done in 3 months, we had a lot of us working together. There were over 10 of us working together, and we had all different types of jobs that we were doing together and working together, so that we could get it done. And sometimes it was to help save time, so we would work together. But sometimes you also really just needed more than one person to be able to do things. So take a look and see if you have this, can tell me any of the things you notice that we're doing when we're working together here. And let's talk about some of the ways we can work together as conservators. So sometimes if you look on the upper right, sometimes it's just talking to each other, because sometimes we give each other ideas if we're not really, I have an idea about what I might want to do, but sometimes it's really helpful to talk to other friends. And even if I'm working on something myself, I often talk to another conservator, and we give each other ideas and help each other think about the best way to take care of the art. And sometimes it's as simple as in the picture below, can you see what they're doing? So they're lying down because they're working on the floor. But it would take a really long time for one person to be lying on the floor and doing everything, right? So we have lots of different conservators and friends working together on that. And then same on the left, that's one of the shutters that are usually up and mounted up, but we had to repair it. So we took it off and had it lying down. And so again, people are doing different things at different times to help each other. And so one person is cleaning it very gently with a brush, and somebody else is looking at an area where the wood had a problem. And then somebody else is looking on again, because we do a lot of talking with each other. So does anyone have any questions about that one? No? Okay. Well, you can, the painting is not on view, but the peacock room is always on view. So if you come to the museum, you can come and see it, and you can see the way it looks after we worked on it. And there's a section on our website where you can learn all about the project. And I'm going to turn it back over to Leah, who's going to talk about other friends we work with in the museum besides conservators.
Thanks, Ellen. Yes, conservators really enjoy working together, but we don't only work with other conservators in the museum. We have all kinds of other departments that help us make sure that artwork is safe and that it can be put on view for visitors like you all to enjoy. So this is an artwork that's made out of neon, which is very cool. And when it's all lit up, it gives off this beautiful pink color that kind of makes me think of cherry blossoms. But as you could imagine, it's really big. And so it takes a lot of people to help put it together. And so conservators like me also worked with people who are experts in mounting to keep artwork safely up on a wall, or people who are experts in handling really heavy things and they can move it around for us. And other people who are experts in packing and shipping artwork so it can move from place to place safely. And so those are all of the people that you see in this photo on the left that are helping to put each of those letters up on the metal frame that keeps the letters up and safe and sound. And so that's one example of us all working together to get an artwork up for you to see. And I think there's, yep, one more slide of how many people it takes to get a textile up on the wall. Yep, and for some metal panels up on the wall, people from our exhibitions department, also from conservation, and our registration department, who are the people that keep track of artwork so they never get lost, and they make sure that they're all nice and safe. So this is just a fun little view of some of the behind the scenes work that happens to make sure that artwork can go safely on display. And these are actually both on view, so you could go see them if you want. On the left, the textile is at the Renwick Gallery, and you can see that until April 2nd, I believe. And on the right, those are by an artist named David Butler, and they make really cool shadows on the wall, those painted metal panels. So you could go see those at our main museum, the American Art Museum, until the end of March. So there you go. Lots of people, lots of friends that work together with us, the art doctors. Oh, and here are some great examples that we all made together of cherry blossom artworks that, like Laura showed you, with cotton swabs, with a plastic bottle, and with bubble wrap. And we all had a great time working together, like as friends, to make these artworks together. It was really fun. And another thing that we do as art doctors, if you've been with us, you've probably seen this before. We like to keep track of our artworks, and so we can track if anything changes and to make sure that they're safe for many years to come. And so I would love your help in filling out this art doctor conservation report for this painting that I made that I started using watercolors, but then I got really excited and I wanted to use other materials. So I also used some pastels and I did some splatter painting. So I went a little bit crazy, but it was very fun. So I hope you're having fun making your artworks too. So you'll see on this report, the first thing is art doctor or conservator's name. So in this case, that would be me because I'm the art doctor or conservator, as we say. So I would put Leah there. And next is the art's name. So I haven't named this artwork yet. So if you have any ideas for what the title of this painting should be, throw that in the chat. I would love to get your ideas. Anybody have an idea of what this should be titled? What should I call it? Maybe just cherry blossoms or springtime.
So Leah, I'm
Something
seeing
like
in the
that.
chat that someone said they like the word blurry or windy.
Ooh, blurry or
I'm thinking,
windy.
I'm thinking the windy might be memories from earlier this week.
That is a very good point. It was very windy earlier this week in Washington, D.C. And so maybe that inspired me to make this kind of blurry tree painting. Yes, and I think someone said it was moody. It does look a little moody and kind of dark. That's perfect, perfect. Okay, so once we have a name for the artwork, we go on to our examination. And so what 3 words do you think best describe this artwork? We kind of said some already: blurry, colorful, what else? Any other words? We could still say windy, maybe pink. Any others coming up? How would you describe this? You can also think about how you would describe your own artworks. And then the next one is a fun emoji question. And it says, which emoji best describes how you felt making the art? And this is an easy one for me. I would say that I felt very happy and cool. So I would probably pick either the sunglasses emoji or the really happy one, because I had a really good time making this, partly because I was with my friends, with my blossom buds. So that's a fun one. And then the next question is, what can you do to take care of your art? So when you're doing this for your own artwork, think about how you might work with the other people in your home to keep the artwork safe. What could you do with them to put it on display? You could maybe put it with a magnet or something on a refrigerator, or put it on the wall. Oh, keep away from sunlight. Good call. Yes, I think if I put this directly in a window, it might fade. The colors would go away pretty quickly. So keeping it away from sunlight is a good one. I think if this got wet, it would probably, all the color would just go away because it's watercolor and pastels. And I think if I got water on it, it would just kind of disappear. So keeping it away from water, probably keeping it out of my bathroom where I take showers and things. So that would probably get it all wet. Yeah, I probably want to keep it away from my dog. She might damage it. So she is not a helpful friend with artwork. Yeah, and so that's the end of the art doctor report. At the bottom, you could sketch your artwork, which is, we always document artwork at the museum so we can track changes over time. So if you want, feel free to sketch your artwork there at the bottom. And that's that. We would love to see, even if they're not finished, what your artworks are looking like right now. So send them our way and we'll do a little show and tell.
Thank you, Leah. Yes, please do. This is the time now to send us images of your, oops, we had sculptures here, but we meant to say paintings this time around. And we'll add it to our learning lab and we'll have it in our show and tell. Before we get into that, I just want to also encourage you all to take a look around your home and in your community, or go outside and really look at it's starting to be spring. So see what flowers you see. And as we talked about, look at them up close, look at them far away, see how they look different. Definitely don't pick them. As we talked about, cherry blossoms are very fragile and we want to keep them for many generations. So don't pick any flowers off, let them grow and live. But also we want you to look around in your home. And so think about, do you have any flowers or anything, plants with leaves on it? Think how you would take care of it. Would you take care of it by yourself? Would you take care of it with maybe your family members or other friends? So really take a look and think about how maybe you would take care of your plants. Might be different how you would maybe take care of your art. For example, when Leah mentioned keeping some artwork away from light, plants often need a lot of light. We don't want to get our artwork wet, but plants, of course, need water. So think about the different ways, and it's always a good way to talk about it with your buds at home.